I just had a nice coffee and I'm buzzing right along, so I figured it's still the 11th on Tuesday. Let's read another chapter. It's a short chapter and it's titled Pet Peeve. Uh, Pretty much self-explanatory, but here we go. Pet peeve. We can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light. Plato. There's one thing that really pisses me off. It's when somebody says, "Oh, yeah, I know what you mean. I get that too." Through the years, I have learned to let a lot of negative things roll off my back. It's not productive to carry around anger for no good reason. I've worked my way through so many difficult situations, and during most of those episodes, I didn't understand what I was suffering from. How can I blame someone else for not understanding it if I don't understand it myself? But the other day, I was walking through town, and someone from the neighborhood, whom I had not seen in some time, recognized me. He stopped, we exchanged greetings, and we shared a pleasant conversation. For so many years, I kept my condition and experiences a closely guarded secret. So close, in fact, my wife and kids had no idea what I was going through on a daily basis. It's not easy for me to take those details public now. It's something I'm learning to do to help others. He asked me what I was up to, and I decided to step out of my shell. I told him I was writing a book about severe anxiety and panic attacks to help others who are afflicted. I told him I had struggled with my own agoraphobia and worked for years to overcome it. Severe anxiety and panic attacks? Oh yeah, I get those all the time. Well, good luck with that. It's very difficult to explain to people in a short conversation what severe anxiety and panic is really like. The way I describe it is to someone in a workshop is simple. I ask them to describe to me so that I am confident they know what severe anxiety really is. Usually they describe a rapidly beating heart or a dry mouth, or compare it to an out-of-body experience that they get when something scary happens. Not quite. I then asked them to think about the fear they would feel walking alone through an alley at night in a dark, dangerous neighborhood, completely lost, with the sounds of angry dogs barking and random screams echoing in the distance. That's the level of anxiety someone with agoraphobia feels all the time. But then, someone suddenly jumps out at you from behind the dumpster. You think the worst. That's the feeling of panic someone with agoraphobia experiences during an actual panic attack. The only difference is that the person who jumps out at you is a very real threat. It's rational. Where the fear of an agoraphobic's panic attack is entirely created in their mind. In my brain, that terrifying person who jumped out from behind that dumpster is no more than a simple passing thought. Again, sticking with the analogy, that a person or thing jumped out from behind a dumpster is essentially your bad thought process at work. You are imagining all sorts of bad things that could happen to your body. You think there's something wrong with you, but your mind won't let you leave that dark, terrifying alley. Waiting for the next person to jump out at you is the actual panic attack. People also don't appreciate that these severe attacks can last up to an hour, and it feels much longer than that. Accepting that these attacks cannot harm you, that they can only exhaust you, is part of the healing thought process, even if that process remains terrifying. To explain to explain the second part of what it's like, I use the analogy of running up 10 flights of stairs as fast as you can on a hot, humid summer day, wearing a wool suit. When you arrive at the top out of breath, drenched in sweat, and feeling your heart racing at 200 beats per minute, make believe there is someone else standing there. Now, shake hands with that person to try and carry on a normal conversation. Act as if everything is normal. This is how you feel physically during a panic attack. And this is how I felt when I entered a conference room, stepped into a crowded elevator, or stood to speak in front of a group at a meeting. Now combine the psychological feelings of the things jumping out at you from behind the dumpster with the physical effects of running up those stairs. Now you have it. Functioning while all this is going on in my system has been an extraordinary experience. Looking back on how many of those moments now, I have no idea how I was able to do it. Normal Brian, as I sometimes call myself today, looks back on it now. And trust me when I say that I don't look back anywhere near as often as I used to, and wishes I could have felt the way I do now, and had the tools and healing thought process in place to be able to deal with it better than I did. If you think you might be a full-fledged agoraphobic, understand that fear and panic is part of normal life. It's when these feelings escalate out of control that they become a condition that needs to be addressed. Recently, I asked an old friend who has known me since high school to read a draft of the dedication to this book and share his thoughts. About halfway through, he looked up at me over the pages he was holding and laughed out loud. He truly does not believe that I ever had this affliction. How could he have known? It's because the fear also made me hide it. Fear is a very powerful emotion. Fear holds many people back. Fear can destroy your life. Everyone experiences fear on some level, but many don't know what suffering from fear really is all about. If you have agoraphobia, I know I don't need to explain it any further. Those who are closest to me, especially my wife and kids, believe me 100%. They understand, but I know they'll never comprehend it fully. Because of the way I was, I faked everything. I lied to everyone, and I hid my fear. And that took away their chance to understand it too. I'm neither a psychiatrist nor a psychologist, but I am experienced, and you're holding my PhD in your hands. I ask that you believe and trust me when I say there is a way through it, and that the other side is real, and on the other side you can be normal again. So tell me, do you think you still suffer from anxiety and panic attacks? There's a little bit of anger, probably you can see it or sense it in my voice, because I guess I should be happy that people say, oh yeah, no, I have that. I was literally in a meeting 2 days ago working on getting some a clothing line, and sitting with one of the bosses of the company, and on and on and on. He says, oh yeah, I get those all the time. And my first thought is, it's a defense mechanism. And, what does that mean? I get them all the time. You get anxiety, you get nervous, you get fearful, yeah, I get all those. Okay, well, you're normal. That's what everybody gets. And by the way, there is no way on God's green earth I am trying to say I've had it worse than anybody on the planet. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is the worst case scenario is it starts out with worry at a very young age. You've heard me probably say this if you heard my talks or my tapes. From there, it gets into anxiety, where the nervousness or worry turns into nervousness and anxiety. From there, you have what's called a panic attack. You can't breathe, and you suddenly have to get out. Well, I always say, if you have a panic attack over there, you're afraid to go over there. Then you're afraid to go over there, because you always think you're going to have that panic attack at that certain spot. Here's the problem. I'm 55 years old. I started having these in my late teenage years. My anxiety was always there, but the panic attack started when I was in my teenage years. But I'm using the word panic attack. And at 8 minutes and 33 minutes into this, you have to understand, I did not know what it was. I did not know what it was. Those are the 7 words that are the most important in this book, to understand where I was, where I am now. Because once you understand what it is, you can get help, and not more importantly, in today's world, you can look up for yourself what it is and feel better about it, because it's only anxiety. Okay, that's what I had. When I was younger, I honestly thought I had a brain tumor. I honestly thought I was going insane. I honestly thought I was going to jump over bridges. I was going to jump out off of, when I was in hotels and woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, I was going to jump out a window. I didn't have the knowledge of saying, oh, that's what it is. And I'm going to take it one step further. I did a lot of investigating. People killed themselves over this. And unfortunately, they still do. People went to psychiatric wards. People got electric shock treatment for the feelings that I had, because it just manifested and grew into something that was so horrific in their minds. And believe me, I have been there. This guy, I'm not going to say me, this guy, this book is both inspirational and it's both motivational, because it proves that even though in my mind I suffered from the worst of the worst, I still did what I wanted to do and set out to do. It was become independently wealthy and also have freedom and all the things that I wanted to enjoy. And I knew somehow, some way, I was going to figure out what this thing was. And once I figured out what this thing was, I went at it full bore. And by going at it full bore, my healing thought process, you will notice there's no words fight. By fighting it, it becomes worse. So, once again, the pet peeve part is the part that bothers me, because when people say I have that, they might have it, they might have a panic attack, they might have nervousness, they might be a fear of public speaking. I once was talking to a guy and says, I know what you mean about driving over bridges, it drives me crazy. The bridge was just one obstacle. 99.9% of my obstacles were right here. The bridge was just one of them. The thoughts that I had were horrific. It's not the bridge, it's what happens when I'm on the bridge. I'm not afraid to drive off the bridge. I'm afraid if I have whatever that thing was, which now I know is anxiety and panic attacks, if I had that on the bridge. So what do? You avoid the bridge. Then you avoid the road that goes to the bridge. Then you avoid the hotel you went into. So this avoidance creates agoraphobia. So that's what I had. That's my pet peeve. That's my pet peeve session. That's the part where one last thing. I'm at 11:52. I'll go to one. I'm sorry. I'll go to 13. I'm thinking of a clock. I'll go to 13. Here we go. A minute. I'm at my boatyard. I once had 3 people sit on the edge, kicking their feet. They worked here. Good friends of mine now. And one of them screamed out as I pulled up in my Jaguar, which many of you probably have. And I wish I was you. And it was 1:30 in the afternoon. Now, you've all heard of no-see-ums. No-see-ums are those little white bugs that they bite you at night. You can't even see them. That's why they're called no-see-ums. After the 50th one, it becomes a horsefly and you start to get pissed off. Well, that saying was my horsefly, and I got pissed off. And I walked up to him, and I won't say his name, and I said, you really want to be me? And I, for some reason, maybe it was the time of day or I got in an argument with somebody that day, I laid into him and I said, really? I said, do you? And I went into everything I've done for the most part in about 2 or 3 minutes. By the time I was done, I said, now if you want to do all that and then be me, God bless you, go for it. And the only thing I could say is he's one of a very close acquaintance now. He fully understands now. And sometimes it does get me. Because people, you never know what people have been through. And even though people have been through a lot worse than me, and I mean, we already know that. This is my story. And this is an affliction that millions of people suffer from. And it's very real, especially when you have it, no matter what level. And I've come to realize that people that suffer from panic attacks also might think that they have it very bad. And they do. In their minds, they do. And that's what this book is. It's to help those people. So, I'm at 14 minutes. Thank you very much. That'll be all for today, because it's beautiful out and I'm going to take a ride. Have a great day, and I'll come at you soon. We're moving right down to the healing thought process. Have a good day. Take care.